historic conflicts.
It was a war that lasted just 42 days, but it changed modern warfare forever. The year is 1991. As night falls over the Arabian desert, the sky explodes with streaks of light. Stealth aircraft cut through the darkness, invisible to radar. Cruise missiles scream toward their targets with surgical precision. For the first time in history, the world is watching a war unfold live on television, in real time. But how did it come to this? How did a small, oil-rich nation in the Persian Gulf become the center of one of the largest military coalitions in history? To find the answer, we must rewind to August 2nd, 1990. Before dawn, the rumble of engines shatters the quiet streets of Kuwait City. In a matter of hours, more than 100,000 Iraqi troops and hundreds of tanks pour across the border. Kuwait's defenses crumble almost instantly. By sunset, the Iraqi flag is flying over the capital, and the world is on edge. Iraq's leader, Saddam Hussein, claims Kuwait was stealing oil from his country and driving down prices to weaken Iraq's war-torn economy. But behind the official statements lies a far more dangerous ambition: control over some of the world's largest oil reserves, and a bold bid to make Iraq the dominant power in the Gulf. The world's response will be swift and overwhelming, and what follows will be unlike anything the world has seen before. The invasion of Kuwait sent shockwaves across the globe. Within hours, the United Nations condemned Iraq's actions. Resolutions were passed demanding an immediate withdrawal. But Saddam Hussein ignored every warning. For U.S. President George H.W. Bush, the stakes could not be higher. If Iraq held Kuwait, Saddam would control nearly 20% of the world's oil supply, and his army could threaten Saudi Arabia next. In a high-stakes diplomatic push, Bush began assembling a coalition the likes of which hadn't been seen since World War II. The result? 35 nations, united under one cause. The list read like a geopolitical roll call. The United Kingdom, France, Canada, Egypt, Syria, even the former Soviet Union offered support. Troops, tanks, warships, and aircraft poured into the deserts of Saudi Arabia in a massive buildup known as Operation Desert Shield. By late 1990, nearly 1 million soldiers stood ready, over 500,000 from the United States alone. Behind them were the cutting-edge weapons of a new era: stealth fighters that could slip past radar, satellite-guided bombs, and cruise missiles capable of striking with pinpoint accuracy. Still, the world hoped war could be avoided. For months, diplomats shuttled between Baghdad and world capitals, searching for a peaceful resolution. But Saddam refused to back down. He declared Kuwait the 19th province of Iraq and vowed never to surrender it. On November 29th, the United Nations passed Resolution 678, giving Iraq a clear deadline: withdraw from Kuwait by January 15th, 1991, or face military action. That deadline came and went. The world's patience had run out. The coalition was ready. The storm was about to break. The deadline had passed. Diplomacy had failed. And now the storm would begin. In the early hours of January 17th, 1991, the desert sky over Iraq came alive with fire. From the Persian Gulf, U.S. warships unleashed waves of Tomahawk cruise missiles, each one traveling hundreds of miles with computer-guided precision. From air bases in Saudi Arabia, sleek black F-117 Nighthawk stealth fighters slipped silently into Iraqi airspace. Invisible to radar, unstoppable in the darkness. Their targets? The nerve centers of Saddam's war machine: radar stations, command bunkers, communication hubs. Within minutes, Iraq's air defenses were blinded. The carefully built shield of missiles and anti-aircraft guns simply vanished. On the surface, this looked like the great opening strikes of the past: Pearl Harbor in 1941, the Blitzkrieg over Poland in 1939. A sudden crushing blow meant to cripple an enemy before it could react. But this was something different. This was the dawn of a new kind of war. In World War II, bombers carpeted cities, hoping sheer numbers would hit the target. In Vietnam, pilots braved heavy anti-aircraft fire to deliver their payloads. Here in the Gulf, precision had replaced brute force. A single missile, guided by satellites and lasers, could slip through a single window and destroy a bunker without leveling the entire block. And it wasn't just soldiers who knew about it. The entire world was watching, live, on television. For the people of Baghdad, the night sky was a terrifying theater of green tracer fire and orange explosions. For military planners around the world, it was a revelation. Technology had changed the rules. Control of the skies no longer required equal numbers. It required superior information, stealth, and accuracy. By dawn, the Iraqi Air Force had been driven into hiding. Many pilots fled to Iran, their aircraft grounded forever. In just a few hours, the coalition had won the war in the air, and the ground war hadn't even started. By late February, the Iraqi army was battered, its air defenses shattered, and its supply lines cut. But Saddam's forces still held Kuwait, and coalition leaders knew air power alone would not drive them out. At 4 a.m. on February 24th, 1991, the second phase of the war began. From the Saudi border, American Marines surged forward into Kuwait, supported by British and Saudi troops. Iraqi defenses, already weakened by weeks of bombardment, crumbled almost immediately. But here was the genius of the coalition's plan. While the Iraqis expected a direct push into Kuwait, the main U.S. force was swinging wide to the west. This massive flanking maneuver, led by the U.S. 7 Corps and spearheaded by the M1 Abrams main battle tank, punched deep into the desert of southern Iraq. It was a move right out of history's playbook, reminiscent of the German Blitzkrieg, but now executed with modern speed and precision. The result was devastating. Iraqi units found themselves encircled before they even knew the battle had begun. Thousands surrendered without firing a shot. Others fled in chaos along Highway 80, a retreat so desperate it became known as the Highway of Death, where coalition aircraft destroyed scores of vehicles in a scene that would later spark debate about the ethics of overwhelming force. By February 27th, coalition tanks had cut off all routes of escape. Kuwait City was liberated with minimal resistance, its citizens flooding the streets in celebration. Just 100 hours after the ground war began, President George H.W. Bush ordered a ceasefire. The numbers told the story. Coalition forces suffered fewer than 300 combat deaths. Iraq's military losses were in the tens of thousands. It wasn't just a victory, it was a demonstration of how air dominance, rapid maneuver, and precise intelligence could make even the largest army collapse in days. The Gulf War had redefined what a modern ground offensive could be, and left the world wondering how future wars would be fought. The war was over, but its consequences were only beginning. For the coalition, the Gulf War was hailed as a triumph, a textbook example of overwhelming force and flawless coordination. For Iraq, it was a disaster. The once proud army, fresh from 8 years of brutal conflict with Iran, was now shattered. Its tanks lay burned out in the desert. Its air force was grounded. Its soldiers were either dead, wounded, or prisoners of war. Politically, Saddam Hussein remained in power, a decision that puzzled many observers. President Bush chose not to push on to Baghdad, fearing that removing Saddam could plunge Iraq into chaos, destabilize the region, and fracture the coalition. Instead, Saddam's regime faced crushing United Nations sanctions. Iraq's economy collapsed. Its infrastructure, already devastated by bombing, struggled to recover. For the people of Iraq, the war brought years of hardship. Food and medicine became scarce. Malnutrition and disease spread, particularly among children. The destruction of power plants and water treatment facilities during the bombing campaign had long-term effects on civilian health. For the United States and its allies, the war shaped a new military doctrine: air supremacy first. No ground offensive would begin until the skies were completely under control. Technology as a force multiplier. Smart weapons, stealth, and satellite intelligence became the cornerstones of modern combat. Coalition warfare as a model. The ability to unite dozens of nations under one command showed that large-scale multinational operations could succeed. Yet the war also revealed uncomfortable truths. The televised images of the Highway of Death sparked debates about the morality of overwhelming firepower against retreating forces. The Gulf War syndrome, unexplained illnesses among veterans, raised questions about chemical exposure and long-term health effects. And perhaps most importantly, the war left unfinished business. Saddam's survival meant that Iraq would remain a source of tension in the Middle East. In the years to come, that tension would explode again, leading to another, even more controversial war in the Gulf. Thank you for respecting history. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and write the bell so you don't miss any battles.